Welcome back, Adam here. Today I'm looking at the UK tax requirements for anybody living overseas. Now, this is an increasingly common one, with remote working enabling people to work for UK companies without actually being present here in the UK, with more people spending time working overseas for extended periods and overseas retirement remaining a popular option. So let's start with the basic rules of how and when UK tax is applied in this situation. If you are considered to be resident in the UK for tax purposes, then you're going to pay UK tax on your worldwide income. Whether it's earned here in the UK or overseas, it doesn't matter. UK tax will usually apply. So I, for example, am UK tax resident. I spend almost 100% of my time living here in the UK. So I'll pay UK tax on my income that I earn here, like my employment income, but I'll also pay tax on any income that I have from overseas. If you're considered non-resident for tax purposes, then you only need to pay tax on your income that arises here in the UK. Any foreign income would not be subject to UK tax. Whether or not you are considered to be UK resident for tax purposes is going to depend on how much time you're spending in the country, and possibly in the more complex situations, it can come down to the number of things that tie you to the UK, such as your family, your job, or your house. The full test for this is known as the Statutory residence test, and it has a number of steps to work through that are going to help you to determine your residency status. You can find the full guidance on this on the gov.uk website. A simplified version, though, for those living overseas is to be non-resident, you must spend fewer than 16 days in the UK during a tax year, or fewer than 46 days if you haven't resided in the UK for the previous 3 tax years. You can also be non-resident if you've worked in another country full-time. That's at least 35 hours a week on average working, spent fewer than 91 days in the UK, and worked for no more than 30 of those 91 days. You can be resident for tax purposes in more than one country at the same time, and when you are, that's known as dual residence. Now, if you meet any of these criteria, then you would be considered non-resident for tax purposes in the UK and would only be liable to tax on your UK arising income. So what exactly is UK arising income? This is an important question for anyone who is considered to be non-resident, because as we already know, it doesn't mean that your UK tax obligations disappear altogether. So you'll need to watch out for UK self-employed income, wages from UK employment, income from renting out UK land or property, private pension payments from pension schemes held here in the UK, and savings interest from UK bank accounts. All of these sources of income would still be taxable for a non-UK tax resident. On top of this, if you were to inherit a UK property or land, then capital gains tax would also be payable on any gain made on its disposal. But you don't pay inheritance tax on UK assets that you inherit as a non-resident. Now, something that is useful if you're a non-UK tax resident with income arising here in the UK is that you may still be entitled to your UK personal allowance, even without being present in the country. If you are a British citizen, a citizen of the European Economic Area, which is essentially the EU plus a few other European countries, if you worked for the UK government during the tax year, or if you live in a country that has a double taxation agreement with the UK, you are entitled to a UK personal allowance, irrelevant of residency status, and once your UK arising income exceeds that personal allowance, you'll pay tax at the same rates that everyone else does. So let's assume that you are non-resident and you do have income arising in the UK. What is it that you actually need to do? The first step would be to register for self-assessment if you're not already submitting a tax return. The deadline for registration is the 5th of October, following the end of the tax year that you had UK arising income. The tax year runs from the 6th of April to the 5th of April the following year. So if I was non-resident but had UK rental income in January 2023, that falls into the 22-23 tax year, and I would need to register for self-assessment by the 5th of October 2023. If I fail to do so, then HMRC may issue me with a penalty. Once registered in that example, I would then have until the 31st of January 2024 to submit my return to HMRC and pay any tax liability that is owing. Again, failure to do so can result in penalties and interest being applied. Anyone living overseas who has UK arising income will need to ensure they complete the supplementary pages SA 109, which reports their residency status to HMRC, as well as any of the income pages that apply to their situation. What you will find though is that HMRC's online service for filing self-assessment tax returns doesn't allow you to add the SA 109 supplementary pages to declare your residency status. To get around this, you can use commercial solutions such as our Go Simple Tax in-browser software, which does allow you to add the necessary pages. Let's use this to take a look at the entries that you would need to make. So I'm logged into my Go Simple Tax account. Remember, this is all in browser. You don't need to download any software, and you'll just need your basic contact information, your national insurance number, etc. to get set up. There's no charge for getting set up. You only actually pay when you come to submit your return, so you can use this like a bit of a free trial. So I'm logged in here. I've got a self-employed page. You can see on the left hand side here the pages I've got populated. I'm going to remove this one in a minute and we'll add our example income, and I'm logged into my 2022-2023 self-assessment tax return, which would be overdue at this point of recording, but we'll use this for the example. So what I want to do in this example is assume that I am non-resident. I've taken the statutory residency test. I am non-resident for the tax year, and I now want to declare some UK arising income to HMRC. We'll go with employment income and rental income. Those are nice and easy. And I want to tell HMRC as well that I am non-resident for this tax year. Remember, it's not possible to do that through your government gateway and the personal tax online service. But to do it through Go Simple Tax, what I'll do first of all, I'm going to add my income. So on the left hand side, I can click new page, and then I can just look for the types of income that I have in here. So we've got all of the page numbers, and I want to look for employment income. So I'll click select, and then I'll just populate any questions that I'm asked. I'm going to answer here. So when it comes to employment income, you're normally going to want your P60 or your P45. In this case, I'm just going to put an example. But most of your information would come from either a P45 or P60. P60 you receive at the end of a tax year if you're still in an employment. P45 if you leave an employment partway through a tax year. It's the equivalent form that you'll receive, but contains all the details that you would need to populate this form. Are you a director of the company? No. Save. And then from here you can see it's very simple. I can add income, and if I had some expenses that I want to deduct off my income so I'm not taxed on those, employment related expenses in this case, then I could add those here. So I'm going to click add income. I'll choose a category, and I'll be entering this from my P60, which means I was still in this employment at the end of the tax year. And then I just need to answer the questions here. So again, I can put the name of the employer if I want to. I can then enter the amount that I received, the amount I was paid under PAYE. So I'll go with 50,000. Tax already paid, we'll go with around 7,000. If you need any help with where to find this information or a bit of background on what these questions mean, you can click on the question marks to the right hand side and you'll be given a bit of guidance. If you want to attach anything, so maybe you want to attach your P60 or your P45 for your record keeping requirements, then you can do so by uploading here. Does your income include any disguised remuneration? Again, if you need information on that, click on the question mark. I'll say no. I'm going to save that. And then the other thing that I'll need to do after I've added each section is click on edit. That's going to generate the tailoring questions for those pages. So I don't need to answer everything here. The address for my employer would be optional, but the questions at the bottom I will need to answer. Is this a close company? Remember, use your question marks, but a close company is normally one that is controlled by 5 or fewer people. So you're looking at your smaller companies. Your PAYE reference would come straight from your P60 or your P45. I'm a director of this company. No, I've already said that. Tick if this payment was in respect of off payroll working. That's one that normally applies to contractors. Did you cease to be a company director? No, I've already said I'm not a company director. So I'll save. And then that's our employment page generated. Now, what I'm also going to show you how to do, I've got my self-employed page attached to this on the side. So if I click on my self-employed, if you do have something that you need to remove, you can just do that by clicking delete, selecting the page and then clicking delete at the top, and that will remove it from the calculation. On the left hand side under tax due here, this is a live calculation of your tax figure. So it's saying that I owe £486 to HMRC. I've obviously underpaid slightly through my PAYE, but this will update as I add information into the tax return. This will update in real time, and you can see that if I click new page and I want to add UK property pages, again, I can just work through the questions that I'm asked. I have one property. It's not furnished. It's not let jointly. I do expect to receive income from that property in the next tax year. If not, I could say no here, and they wouldn't be expecting me to populate these pages next year. I don't have losses from previous years. There's no property manager, and I have used the cash basis to calculate my income and expenses. Again, if you need information on what these questions are asking, make sure you click and you'll be given the guidance to help you complete the question. I'll save that one. And then I can just add my income in. So I'll select a category of rental income received. And I'm going to say that I received £10,000 of rent. Now, the box below that, tax withheld as non-resident landlord, this one would actually apply in this situation. If you're a non-resident but you own UK property and you're renting it out, you normally have tax withheld by either the tenant that's living there, or possibly if you've got a letting agent, they will deduct it and hold it. They'll hold that tax and pay it across to HMRC. So in this situation, that would actually be pretty common. There are some examples, some exemptions, to get you around that. But a lot of people that are non-resident renting out properties in the UK will have that withholding tax on their rental properties. Again, I can attach files if I need to. I'm going to save, and you'll see now that tax figure has updated. So I now owe £1,932 based on my £10,000 of property income, my £2,500 withholding tax on that, and my employment income of £50,000. Now from here, I've declared my UK arising income. I've got my employment income. I've got my property income. Because I'm non-resident, I wouldn't need to declare any of my foreign income. So the only additional step to take would be to tell HMRC that I am non-resident. And you would do that by clicking new page, scroll all the way to the bottom, and you're looking for residency SA 109. I'm going to select. And then you can see here we've got quite a few questions to work through. We've got a number of different tabs. The reason there are so many questions and tabs is because you use SA 109 supplementary pages to tell HMRC about non-residency, and also non-DOMs will use it to claim the remittance basis and tell HMRC that they are entitled to that. So working through these quickly, were you resident in the UK? I'm non-resident. I'm happy with that, and that's why I'm filling out these pages. Were you resident in the UK during the previous tax year? I'm going to say no. I've been living overseas for a number of tax years. Do you meet the third automatic overseas test? I'm going to say no again. If you want to go and have a look at what that is, click the question mark, and then you've got a link that will take you to HMRC's statutory residence test, and you can just work through that checklist. But I know in my situation that doesn't apply. Did you have a home overseas during the tax year? Yes, I did. How many days were spent in that home? Now, let's say I spent the full tax year overseas. Please advise the number of days during the tax year that you were in the UK. I wasn't in the UK, so all of these questions here, I'm going to say 0. I was in the UK 0 days in the tax year, 0 days due to exceptional circumstances, and 0 days due to transiting through the UK. How many ties to the UK did you have? I'm going to leave that as 0. Ties to the UK are more important as you work through the statutory residency test. If you can't find a rule that makes you either an automatic overseas resident or an automatic UK resident, they may come into play. And certainly if you are using split year rules, we won't go into all of that today. But again, you can find more information by clicking the question mark and reading HMRC's statutory residency test. I'll leave that as 0. Any additional information can go at the bottom. And then we're just working through each tab. Remember, you might be entitled to a personal allowance. I'm a British citizen, so in my example, I would be entitled. Are you entitled to claim the personal allowance as non-resident because of terms of a double taxation treaty? I'm going to say yes to that one. And then I'm just going to provide details of the countries that I am a national or a resident. So for the first one would be the United Kingdom. So I can just use the drop down and select United Kingdom. And then the second one, in my example, we'll go with Spain. And then I can move on to the next tab. Select the country that you were resident for tax purposes during the year. So again, this one I'm saying I'm not resident in the UK, but I was resident in Spain. If you're a resident in any of these countries during the previous tax year, so in my case, remember I've already told HMRC I wasn't in the UK in previous tax years. I was resident in Spain in those tax years as well. And then please enter the amount of income covered by double taxation agreements. Now, because I'm non-resident, it's quite straightforward. I'm going to get taxed on my UK arising income. I don't have any income in this example that is getting taxed both overseas and in the UK. If you do, and there's a double taxation agreement between the countries, and you can use that double taxation agreement and you'll get relief to ensure that you're not paying too much tax. In this case, I'm going to skip those. I'll leave those as 0 at the bottom, and I'll move on to the last couple of pages. If you are domiciled out the UK, which normally means that you were born outside the UK but now living in the UK, but your sense of belonging, where you're from really, is outside of the UK, then you can tell them that here. There has previously been different tax treatment that you could opt into or pay a fee to opt into, whereby you would only be taxed on your UK arising income and your foreign income that you remit to the UK, but that sounds like it's being scrapped now. The Treasury announced that they're getting rid of non-dom status. So I'm going to leave that as no. The remittance basis, do you wish to claim? Again, I'll say no, and I'll save that one. What you'll see now is that we've got our employment pages, we've got our UK property pages, which is us declaring our UK arising income to HMRC, and then we've got our residency page, the SA 109 supplementary page, to tell HMRC, I'm only telling you about my UK arising income, I'm only paying tax on that because I am non-resident for tax purposes. My tax liability is £1,932, and if I'm happy with that, then I can save and continue. You'll be prompted to make sure you haven't missed anything. And then I can follow through the steps to go ahead and submit my tax return to HMRC. That was UK tax for non-UK tax residents, as well as a walkthrough to show you the entries that are needed on the self-assessment tax return via our Go Simple Tax in Browser software. I hope you found that useful. Thank you for watching. See you next time.